Hey, welcome back to the garage, everyone. Today we're going to use some old school diagnostic equipment to check the tune on our Coupe de Ville. So stick around. All right, welcome back to the garage, everyone. Today we've got a Sears Penske Automotive Analyzer model 161.21042. This is an old school engine analysis tool, I guess, for the home hobbyist. Made in the good old USA back in the day. I think it was made in the early 80s sometime. I'm really not sure. I picked it up on eBay, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. I couldn't tell you. But it can do a variety of tests, and we have the instruction manual that goes with it, and we'll be using that today to go through some of them, a handful of them, not many. We have, one of the tests we're not going to do today is the alternator test because, well, you can just do that at AutoZone or O'Reilly or Advance, any of them, any of those places nowadays. You can just pull your car up, even your Classic, you know, and they'll do the alternator test for you for free. It's in their best interest, really, because, you know, they can sell you alternators and batteries. The points test and the dwell test, those are two things we're going to do today. And we'll also look at the idle speed. We have RPMs here. And we've got a whole slew of cables that come with this thing to hook up to the various places. And you just follow the instruction manual. It tells you where to connect them. They're keyed, so they're idiot-proof, so you can't screw it up. This is your ohms calibration knob. Basically, just zero out your ohm meter. Voltage. Up to 16 volts or up to 32 volts. And then here's your selector. This is for RPM, 0 to 1200, or if you want to test your ignition advance at a higher RPM, you can run this thing up 0 to 6000. Of course, you got 12 volts, points. There's the alternator test, and then this is the ohm meter over here. Now this thing has a couple of batteries in it. You've got to have batteries to test impedance anyway. So it's got a D battery and a 9-volt battery over there. It's a quality piece of equipment. If you've got an old Classic, I'd recommend picking up something similar to this, especially if your car is in a mostly stock condition like this one is. All right, so up next, let's go ahead and hook it up and just do a basic idle speed check. All right, we've got a couple of cables here that we need to connect. And this one is for the to hook up to the spark plug to check the RPM. And like I said, these are keyed, so you can't screw this up. And this next one here is for connecting up to the battery to get some juice for the test. All right, first up, we're going to take our inductive clamp here and go down to spark plug number 1, which is on the passenger side on a Cadillac. All right, and next up, I'm going to go ahead and hook up the battery connection, and then we'll fire up the engine and see what we have. And this is the manual that came with it. I've got this sitting here because the paper's all curled up, so to flatten it out. And it shows you, it's really simple, right? It shows you the instrument, it shows you which cable to use and how to connect it to do the specific tests, and some basic instructions as well, and then how to read the meter. All right, I've got our engine fired up. We've got our inductive pickup on number 1 over there, and we got power from the battery, and we have an RPM measurement on our tool here. Here's the RPM range, and we're cycling back and forth right in the 850 range, which is where as I recall, that's where I set it last time I did some tuning on the car. Of course, this being analog, right? You're going to see some movement there. So, and we're on the 0 to 1200 RPM range. All right, I've removed the distributor cap just to do a basic inspection, and I'm looking down in there. And this one is fairly new. It's only been on there, I don't know, a couple thousand miles or whatever, and looks really good down in there. No issues there. Let's go ahead and take a look at our points. Why? Because the manual says to do it as part of the next test. They look okay to me. They don't look burnt. I don't see any burrs or any craziness. And I see that they're currently closed. So up next, let's go ahead and do the points resistance test. All right, we're going to go ahead and do the point resistance test next. With the engine off, the green and black test leads must be connected as shown in figure 1 on page 7. Well, okay then. All right, for the points resistance test, we're going to take the green wire here, connect it to this side of the coil. It goes to the distributor. And of course the black lead and the red leads are going to go to the battery for power to run the meter. In addition, we need to disconnect the coil wire from the distributor and connect that to a ground. And then we'll proceed on with the test. All right, let me go ahead and make these connections. All right, I got my jumper here. This long, crazy looking mess here. Basically got my ground connection on the alternator bracket, and I've got the center tap of the distributor pulled out going to the coil, and got that jumper connected to that end as well. And we've got the green connection to the coil from the meter, and again power from the battery to run the meter. We happen to know that our points are already closed, so we should see, when I turn the ignition to the on position, our points test, we should see this go into the green. All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn the ignition to the on position, and hopefully we don't burn down the shop. Stand by. It looks like we are in this sort of stripy area between the OK and the high resistance. So, I don't know. We may be a little iffy there. All right, turn the ignition back off. All right, I flipped the ignition switch over to show you what the meter will do when it's, when the points are open. You can see that the meter is off to one side. All right, so we went and bought ourselves a little points file, and we're just going to see what sort of damage we can do here. I think I want to come at it from the front. No, I don't want to take them out. Open up. You can do it. There we go. All right, let's see what happens. All right, cranked her up, ran her a little bit, and we got the ignition on. I'm running the points resistance test again. We're right at the edge of the green dash, that little gray area right in there, right? We're not in the red, so that's okay. Let's go ahead and disconnect the tool from the car. It zeroes out nicely. I've got the green lead disconnected. I'm going to reconnect it to the coil now. And we're right on the edge of that green and kind of gray area there. I would say those points are probably, they're on their way out. So at some point I may go ahead and replace those pretty soon. However, it's not a tragedy, so let's go ahead and move on to the next test. All right, let's go ahead and do the dwell angle test. And right away, I'd like to point out something that is pretty interesting in the instruction manual here. When the dwell angle is increased, timing is retarded. Conversely, when the dwell angle is decreased, timing is advanced. In fact, there is a 1-to-1 ratio between dwell and timing. For every 1 degree change in dwell, there is a corresponding 1 degree change in timing. This can sometimes be used to make minor changes in timing. If, for example, it is desired to advance the timing 2 degrees, it can be done by simply reducing dwell angle by 2 degrees. This assumes that the dwell angle will not be changed out of its specified range. So that's a handy tip. All right, so up next we're going to do the dwell adjustment on the old Cadillac here. So for the 71, we got the factory service manual pulled out, and we are looking at a 30 degrees of dwell that we need to set or ensure that we are at 30 degrees of dwell, and the adjustment is used with a 1/8 inch Allen wrench. For our dwell test, we're going to move our meter over to the dwell setting there. And we've got this connector here with power from the battery, and we've got this little offshoot from it, which goes to the green connector, which goes over there to the distributor side of the coil. All right, for the dwell test, we need to go ahead and disconnect our vacuum advance. So let me get a pair of needle nose and pull that off of there and plug it up. All right, and a golf tee is one of my favorite little things to keep in my bag of tricks around the shop here, especially for plugging up vacuum lines. Neat. All right, get our green connected back up to the coil here, and I think we are ready to fire up the engine. All right, let's crank her up. All right, as the service manual indicated, our dwell for an 8-cylinder engine should be 30. And we're right on the money. We're not going to adjust that whatsoever. But if we were to adjust it, you open this little window right here, you pull it up with your fingers, and you get your Allen key down in there on your points. You slip it inside the little screw on the points and turn it back and forth. And you would watch your dwell meter go back and forth until you adjusted it to whatever specification was for your particular vehicle. All right, the next test is the dwell variation test. We're simply going to run the RPMs up to 1500 and make sure it stays within a reasonable range. It should stay right around 30. This range here is just an example for the book. Variation on 4, 6, and 8-cylinder engines should not exceed 3 degrees according to this book. If it does, check for wear in the distributor shaft, wear in distributor shaft bushing, or wear in the breaker plate. All right, let's go ahead and run our RPM up to about 1500 and see where we stand. And we're just going to guess at the RPM since we're doing a measurement of the dwell with this meter. All right, here we go. We're about 800, so almost double where we are now. Man, that was rock solid, wasn't it? I'm liking that. All right, dwell looks good. Let's move on. All right, I think that is all for the testing that we're going to do today. This book is fairly long, and it's also crinkled because I keep it coiled up. There's a speed test. We did that already. Of course, this book contains other tests as well. For instance, the timing test, which requires a timing light, obviously, and you would put this in the RPM scale to measure your idle speed while you're doing the timing check. It details carburetor adjustments and things like that. There's a lot of stuff in here that doesn't really require the use of this particular piece of equipment, but it's just good to know information. It's a nice little book for doing some old school basic repairs. Here's some information about checking an alternator. And again, you can go to the parts house and you can have them run an alternator test for you. You don't need to do it with this thing. If I was going to check an alternator, I'd just run up to O'Reilly and have the guy come out there and check it for me. Or Advance or someplace like that. And some other basic information in the book as well. And let's see, on the back, your device and your various accessories and your parts list. And Sears Craftsman Owner's Manual, model 161-210-42. All right, there you are, folks. All right, folks, that's all for now. I just thought I would drag out this old piece of diagnostic equipment and run through it with you. And maybe you might consider getting one yourself if you don't already have one. I highly recommend it for an old classic. Besides, we're not working on Mercedes this weekend because guess what? We're waiting on parts. All right, folks, That's all for now. I appreciate you guys stopping by the channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to be notified whenever I release a new video, don't forget to click that little bell down below. You guys have a good one, and remember to enjoy maintaining your classic Cadillac.